A new player has emerged in the proxy battle between Nelson Peltz and his Trian Fund Management Group and the Walt Disney Company's Bob Iger and the board of the Walt Disney Company. This new player is Ancora Holdings, and they are throwing some massive fireballs at Bob Iger and the Walt Disney Company. They have sided with Nelson Peltz and his proxy battle to gain a number of board seats on the Walt Disney Company's board. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. With that out of the way, let's get into this. Disney proxy battle heats up as Ancora Holdings backs Nelson Peltz and Trian, says Disney engaged in, quote, sustained value destruction. Wrote this article up over at thatparkplace.com. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. As I noted, the pending proxy battle for board seats in the Walt Disney Company is heating up as Ancora Holdings Group through their support behind Nelson Peltz and his Trian Fund Management Group. So we're going to give you a little bit of a brief history, and then we'll get into what Ancora Holdings specifically has to say. Back in January, Trian Fund Management nominated Peltz to the Disney board, given it believed the Walt Disney Company is a company in crisis with many challenges weighing on investor sentiment. Specifically, the firm detailed the company has poor corporate governance, poor strategy and operations, and poor capital allocation. The firm also noted it wanted to, quote, refocus the creative engine to drive profitable growth, indicating that Walt Disney's creative engine was not doing well at all. I think we can see that with the latest efforts at the box office, Wish and the Marvels, and the near $2 billion tax write-off they took just I think it was earlier this year. Peltz and Trian would eventually pull away from the proxy battle in February, issuing the following statement. We congratulate Disney and Bob Iger on their recently announced operating initiatives, which are a win for all shareholders and broadly align with our thinking. We are pleased with the role that Trian was able to play in helping to focus the board to take decisive actions, which we believe will lead to better financial results. We were also pleased to see the company's pledge to restore the dividend. So they were happy with what Bob Iger was telling investors and what he promised to do. However, it doesn't look like they were happy for very long, because in October, CNBC reported the proxy battle was back on, and Trian had managed to increase its shares in Disney to more than 30 million. In January, Trian noted they only controlled 9.4 million common shares. Most of that additional shares, I think, is coming from Ike Perlmutter, who was the former head of Marvel. He sold Marvel to the Walt Disney Company and became the head of Marvel for a number of years until he was recently let go earlier this year. Not only did CNBC note the proxy battle was back on, but the outlet also detailed that the stakes were higher now. The firm plans to push for multiple seats on the board this time, including one for Peltz, anonymous sources told CNBC. So it's not just one board position for Nelson Peltz. It is now multiple board positions for Peltz and other people that Trian wants on the board. By the end of October, it was revealed that former Marvel executive Ike Perlmutter had allied himself with Peltz. The Wall Street Journal's Laurent Thomas and Robbie Whelan reported Perlmutter said he has entrusted his stake in Disney to Peltz's Trian Fund Management as it prepares to press the company for multiple board seats. Trian's holding in the company totals about 33 million shares, including stock that the investment firm controls under an arrangement that gives Peltz firm sole voting power over Perlmutter's shares, according to people familiar with the matter. The report also detailed that Perlmutter plans to urge the Disney board to immediately welcome one or more Trian candidates. Perlmutter himself said, while I was a Disney employee, I was not comfortable publicly stating my views on the company and its performance. As someone with a large economic interest in Disney's success, I can no longer watch the business underachieve its great potential. To that point, it has underperformed the S&P 500, one of the main issues that Trian and Nelson Peltz have brought up in the past. So now let's get into this new player in the game. Ancora Holdings Group, which manages $8.7 billion in assets, announced their involvement in the proxy battle earlier today in a press release, noting, quote, the addition of a shareholder representative or investor designated directors to the board can help ensure that these efforts are carried out in the most effective way. In an effort to avert an election contest following a year of distractions and disappointing performance, we hope you join us in encouraging the board to pursue a viable compromise with Trian Fund Management, LP, and Nelson Peltz. So clearly they are encouraging the Walt Disney Company to accede to Nelson Peltz's demands to get on the board and enact the changes he wants to enact with the company to increase its stock price and also make it just kind of more of a sound business and get it back to those sound business principles. The group also called out Bob Iger and the Walt Disney Company's mismanagement. They wrote, a degree of shareholder-driven change is certainly warranted in Disney's boardroom following an extended period of absent-minded governance. ineffective succession planning, polarizing actions, and sustained value destruction. Very strong, damning words aimed at Bob Iger and the Walt Disney Company board. And they didn't stop there. They lampooned the current board and current executives. Many of Disney's current directors and executives bear responsibility for lapses that have undermined the company's positioning in the exceedingly competitive and ever changing entertainment world. While it has been argued that challenges largely stem from the tenure of Bob Chapek, that is the argument that Bob Iger has put up, even though Chapek really wasn't in control of the company by himself at all. There's a CNBC report indicating he might have gotten maybe 9 months where he was kind of fully in charge, but he was still having to face proxy battles from Bob Chapek through the board, who were not fully aligned with his vision for the company. Nevertheless, the board was in the driver's seat, says Ancora Holdings, during and after that time. So they aren't buying the excuses that Bob Iger is selling. And then to that point, they added the board's stewardship issues have not only resulted in financial setbacks by allowing Disney to devote shareholders' resources to a number of politicized initiatives, referring there, I think, to their battle in the state of Florida and engaging in that battle where they were trying to get to oppose a bill preventing the teaching of gender identity and sexual orientation to children in kindergarten through third grade. They go on and say the board has overseen a deterioration of what was once the most unifying brand in the world. The company is increasingly dividing rather than delighting a growing number of consumers. So Ancora recognizing that Disney is destroying its own brand by getting engaged in these politicized initiatives, noting that it is increasingly dividing rather than delighting. Been saying this, I don't know, probably for half a decade now. Ancora would also put on blast Jason Antaba, who is basically Bob Iger's ally in this proxy battle. He is the principal of Blackwells Capital LLC, and he sided with Bob Iger in the proxy battle. The firm stated in closing, we want to address what looks to be a self-serving publicity stunt on the part of Blackwells Capital LLC. The firm's principal, Jason Antabi, recently attacked Mr. Peltz's efforts at Disney hours before reportedly launching a campaign at the Wendy's company, where Mr. Peltz is chairman and the largest shareholder. We believe the record shows Mr. Antabi is a publicity-seeking green mailer with a questionable personal and business history. On the other hand, it is widely known that Mr. Peltz is a pioneer shareholder activism who has made billions of dollars over many decades for himself, his partners, and fellow shareholders in the companies in which he has invested. Mr. Peltz, or a qualified designee, would make a fantastic addition to the Disney's board. So let's give you some information on Blackwells Capital and Jason Antabi. He made it clear he opposed Peltz and supported Iger by issuing a statement at the end of November. Variety reported that Blackwells, the organization, said, displacing these individuals or other members of the board with Mr. Peltz and other Trian selected nominees would deprive shareholders of valuable, experienced voices in the boardroom at a critical time in the company's history. Blackwells is concerned that Trian's campaign prioritizes Mr. Peltz's ego over what is best for all Disney shareholders, and that its latest effort may cost Disney shareholders upwards of $50 million and serve only as a value-destructive fog for Disney's leadership and board. And Tabi then added his own statement saying, mindless drumbeating activism is not the right strategy for shareholders. Disney's board is acting in the best interest of all shareholders and should be allowed the time to focus on driving value at one of America's most iconic companies without this fatuous sideshow. So obviously he had his own strong words for Nelson Peltz and the pending proxy battle. Not only did he publicly rebuke Peltz and declare his allegiance to Iger and the current Disney board, but recent reports indicate he's targeting Peltz at Wendy's company, as Ancora detailed. This is what Reuters reported earlier this month. Activist hedge fund Blackwells Capital is preparing to challenge Wendy's company's board of directors in a push for improvements to the fast food chain's financial performance. Peltz's Trian management owns a 16% stake in Wendy's and has 3 representatives on the board, including Peltz, Trian president Peter May, and Peltz's son and Trian research co-head Matthew Peltz. So this battle over the Walt Disney Company is now seemingly becoming a battle over Wendy's. Who knows how far this will go and what other corporations it will touch, but this battle is definitely heating up. It is not cooling down, and it looks like both sides are becoming increasingly entrenched, and they are not looking to give way at all. They want their demands met, and they are going to try to achieve that without any kind of coming to any kind of shared mutual ground. And I don't think that you really can come to any kind of shared ground with Bob Iger, at least in the financial aspect. We've seen that he always is trying to say he's trying to quiet the noise, but then he'll say one thing and then his actions show a different story. I think Nelson Peltz has already figured that out. He saw what Bob Iger said back in in January and February. He decided to lay off the proxy battle, saw that Iger's comments didn't actually lead to any legitimate actions, and he's decided to reignite the proxy battle. So we'll see what happens here. But again, stay tuned to the Trent Report. We will be covering this story as it unfolds. I think this is actually more interesting than anything that the Walt Disney Company has put out in a while. The drama here is way more interesting and intriguing. We have main characters, we've got antagonists. I mean, this is a great, great story to follow here, and we will indeed be following. But let me know what you guys make of this proxy battle heating up. People, the sides that have been chosen, what their words are, and what their goals are. Let me know in the comments below.